What if, instead of photographs, you kept a necktie as a memory of every man you ever dated or married? Well, I have enough to make a vest. Some women collect more material, I'm sure. Did you really think I was going to talk about men in my life? You bet I will. So for those of you who are really interested in making a vest like this, there's a million styles you can create with the ties, and YouTube is filled with them. But I'll tell you how I designed mine, and that's real simple. And I wanted it to feel like a real vest, to have like a wearability built into it, because a lot of times, you know, you make something and then it just sits there because like it's not functional really properly as a garment. So my goal was to make an actually wearable functional garment. So you get a bunch of ties, and I borrowed these from my husband's closet. If you don't have a place to borrow, or your husband or boyfriend just would not allow you to cut into those, then go to your nearest thrift store, Goodwill or any other thrift store. There is an abundance of beautiful, colorful, in fact, just go and look, because they are incredibly pretty. The majority of them made are out of silks, and they're unique prints, and they're made somewhere in Italy, and people just get tired of them. And it's really one of the most recyclable pieces of clothing or accessories there is out there. So grab a bunch and then decide on your palette, like what do you like? Like mine, that out of the thrifted ties was kind of in a dark palette. If you want something brighter, go with a gold. These go very well with everything. So gold, yellow, blue, very pretty combination. So then you grab one that you think you want up front. And let's say I'm choosing the one that is just plain gold on the white part of it, and then it has apparently the blue backing of, like the back side of the tie, the narrow side. I like that, right? And then you place it, and just imagine this is going to be the front of your vest, and you may want to add the closure later on or just keep it open. I'm probably going to keep mine open. Then you pick another one that you think will go really well with it. For example, this one has a little bit of blue, right? And it also has a gold tone, but slightly different, but they go very well together. So you have the narrow edge here, so you put the wide one next to it, wrap it around your neck. Again, I'm showing this on your form, but you can easily do it on yourself. You can make them even at the bottom, right? If you prefer to have an even edge, that's fine. I like mine a little, the variation. I like those, the shapes, the triangular shapes, the zigzag shape that it creates. So, but you can really be creative, and you can place one much higher, one much lower, and things like that. And then as you go along, just pin it, very carefully pin it, because if you're gonna give it back to your husband while you're playing, just pin it carefully, not to destroy the silk. Use very long, thin needles, right? Or if you're using the form, pin it on the form and keep going, right? So let's see, I have these two here. For example, I can decide which one goes with which side. Maybe I'll use this one, like completely different pattern, right? From here. And so I can put that one and I wrap it around again. Right, and in this case, this will go, this like wide one will be sandwiched in between the two narrow, and vice versa. The narrow one is sandwiched between. And then you will be sort of measuring and creating the equal parts of it, right? So let me show you what I mean by making sure that the two fronts that you're creating with your ties are symmetrical and are of the same size. Right? This is an art piece, so it's never going to be absolutely perfect, but it could be close to perfect, right? We're still making a wearable garment. So some symmetry is essential. So you just need, as you are assembling and adding the volume of those ties next to each other, you are creating obviously symmetry, and the two sides need to measure the same. So as you put them together, measure in a few different places, right? Like across the chest, for example, here, if I measure, that's approximately 6.5 inches. So this part next to it should also be 6.5 inches, and it is, right? So make sure that that's at least is symmetrical. Once you created that part, you need to create the sides, right? And that usually will take maybe 1 or 2 ties, and you will be cutting them because you will be creating the opening for the arms, right? And creating an armhole. So you will be cutting these pieces, right? And you will have leftover. right? So you'll create, maybe you'll need only one, maybe you will need two. So once you do that, you pin these, and we can work on the shape a little bit later to make sure it's symmetrical. What do you do with the leftovers once you cut it off? So obviously you will need a lining, because in my case, the vest that I am making, it isn't finished yet, but you've already seen that I created a bag made out of denim. And if you like that, or you could use any other material, you could use maybe one-tone silk that complements, maybe like dark navy or blue or golden, whatever you like. I like denim. I like how it really gives it a little bit of structure and weight to it. So, but then I used the remnants, the cutoffs from the ties that I used on the side for the lining. And so you will have to open them, right? Because you want to use every little bit of the fabric that you have. So you will be just open that seam that's usually stitched by hand, open it up, and then create the lining. Remove the backing and the material that stiffens it. It's very easy. And then what you do, really, you can sew it on the machine. You can just lay one tie on top of the other, and then just stitch it through if you don't mind seeing the stitch, the machine stitch, top stitching, which could be beautiful, and you can play with the color. I made it much more difficult for myself. What I did is, like, I would open the seam and get inside, get underneath, and stitch it by hand. And so it becomes practically seamless and invisible. Technically speaking, and I think visually it wouldn't make that huge of a difference. You know, you could really just stitch it by machine, and it will be just pretty. And so what do you do in the back? This is too much, in my opinion, to have layers and layers, unless you want to create a neck, right, a standing up collar. But I like to have just one, and I chose for my vest, I chose the one that goes on front, right? So my front tie would be also my neck. Let me show you on mine. I kept it as a neck, right? And I removed the rest of them. I cut them off at the shoulder. You will measure, once you assemble this, you will put it on yourself and see where your shoulder is. And then you cut your ties at the shoulder, and then insert them into your shoulders on the lining and on the back. When I wear this, again, this still quite a bit of work. That looks like a real vest already, right? So this part I will simply carefully attach by hand, and this will be my vest. Again, this is like a very kind of still pinned and not finished draft of a vest, right? You can say, but you can already see what it's going to look like in shaping. So again, this was my first experiment. It sat unfinished for quite some time, so I'm doing it now, but I thought you might like to do something like that. And I am showing you the entire process while talking about men. Hi, I thought I'll show up and say hello as I'm editing this video, actually. Did you really think I was going to talk about men in my life? You bet I will. I'm not going to go into every juicy detail. I don't think it's that interesting or necessary in this case, but I am going to share with you how I looked at all of this archetypally and in terms of the patterns that I kept repeating over and over and over again in my life until I hopefully learned. I think I did. I wanted to examine how I showed up in my relationships and what those reflected back at me and what they taught me about me. And if you arrived here just now watching this video, there is a short about the 3 types or archetypes or Thai men archetypes that I kept repeating in my life. I think that might be fun for you to watch. But if you don't want to, then the 3 most common archetypes that I have encountered in my life were the creative type, or some might call it the man-child type, in my case an architect, and then there was a corporate guy, and I called him a corporate spork. That is a very well put together and kind of like corporate young man, very sure of himself, but hiding a lot of things behind, like kind of the two-faced guy. And then the most common for me was the father figure. Understandably, because if you know me, you know I grew up without a dad, so that's like a very basic case scenario. But I want to say that if any of you are embarking on that journey of self-discovery through analyzing the relationships that you've had through your entire life, or maybe having right now, and want to kind of know why you choose people that you do, I think for me, what I found out, you have to start from the very beginning, and that's in your childhood. And I'm sorry, it's hard. It's really hard to really have a good look at what happened and understand how that impacted your entire life and all the choices you made. Not just men, like romantic partners, but your friends, your bosses, a lot of situations in your life. So in my case, I grew up without a dad, so one parent was absent emotionally and physically from my life. The other parent, my mother, relied on me as her partner, as her caretaker, as her support in every possible way. And so from the very young age, I kind of grew up knowing that, you know, your partner is not available, that instead you have to provide that support and work really hard to earn the love and respect. So the love was conditional, and I thought I had to earn it. And then additionally, you know, sadly, and it happens a lot in our lives, and what happened to me is you're one parent who was hurt before and didn't have the strength, the courage to look at it, examine it, and let go of it, and make sure to protect her child from the impact of that emotional trauma. My mom didn't have that capacity, and when I was little, she would say things like, she would share with me that, for example, my father didn't, or rather wanted a boy, and he even promised a golden ring to give to my mother if she had a boy, but I arrived. So I, from the beginning, thought that, you know what, I wasn't wanted. Nobody would want me. And then my mom would always compare me to my dad if she was cross with me, and she would say that you're just like him. She was really, really upset with him because he was abusive and he left us, and then he drank like a fish. But also, you know, these two things together came in my head, in my mind, in my heart, and I thought that, you know, to really have a family, I have to work really hard. I have to go and find people who need me, who I could be really helpful to, and carry their burdens, and then they will love me, and things like that. So the way I showed up in those relationships are very, very reflective of how I grew up feeling as a kid. So if you are wanting to look at that from your childhood, be prepared to shed some tears, to have some revelations. But, oh God, how liberating, how elated you're going to feel, and how liberated you're going to feel if you do that work. And I think multiple generations in my family, the women, if I look back, had that trauma and they carried it. And I think I'm the first one who is really taking a very good, hard look at it and trying to break that pattern. And I think I am forever going to be learning and trying to understand myself. But that's a good start. And I thought that might be helpful for someone else to know about this. So I am probably confusing the hell out of YouTube algorithms, because, you know, to succeed and make it on YouTube, you have to like really be persistent, consistent, and let it be understandable what your videos are about. Is it about sewing and making a vest out of ties? Yeah, it is. Is it about sharing emotional trauma and the healing process from it? Yeah, a big part of it. I've got poetry, Victorian poetry, to put, in my video, because who says more about love and relationship that like a sad Victorian? It's all of the above, because we are complex human beings. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is easy. And I think you can't just separate one from the other. And I think I'm going to give it all to you all at once, with the emotion, with the humor, with the poetry, with the music, with the sewing and the tips and tricks. And so take it what resonates and leave the rest behind. And hope that it helps, because I started that channel with the hope that this would be something that would resonate and people would take some grains of truth, and this would be helpful on their journeys. But anyway, it's the end of the year. Thank God 2026 is upon us. So cheers. Looking back, I can see why I was drawn to the men I met as an adult. Each needed care, support, stability, and I showed up, ready to provide it, sometimes perhaps more than I should have. One was married, I was very young, and while I knew it was wrong, for the first time I felt seen and interesting as a human being, as a woman, a feeling I hadn't really experienced with my parents. Later in life, a much older man, I married and followed into a foreign country to be with. He struggled with work and family depression issues for 10 years of our marriage, and he hid it from me. I tried to protect him, stabilize him, and hold the connection together, only to be left when he said he didn't think I loved him. And he was right, because my feelings were far more complicated. Part of me wanted a partner to take care of, the other part wanted a parent to be taken care of. And there was the architect, my creative man-child archetype, who needed constant emotional support, leaned on me financially, and insisted all he really wanted was to be treated nicely. Well, when I tried to leave, he proposed marriage in full drama, only to later ask me to move out. I saw them, I felt for them, and I tried to care and protect, to love in the best way I knew how. They weren't bad men. They were wounded, just as I was. The bonds that we formed were built on shaky ground, and none of us, despite our ages, were mature enough to truly see it or to heal it together. When we begin from brokenness, there is first a need to mend the parts of ourselves, to come home to who we are before we can truly be with another. And that's okay, because the beautiful thing is that none of it is wasted. At least I see it that way. Every one of those relationships left a mark, a lesson, was a mirror showing me what I needed to say about myself. And I choose to remember the things that made me stronger, more aware and more whole, and let go of the hurt, the disappointment, the confusion. I try to integrate the lessons, and I am grateful for them. You see now why I can't really be mad about any of this and why I'm so chipper about it. When I'm dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me. Plant thou no roses at my head, nor shady cypress tree. Be the green grass above me, with showers and dewdrops wet, and if thou wilt, remember, and if thou wilt, forget. I shall not see the shadows, I shall not feel the rain, I shall not hear the nightingale sing on as if in pain. And dreaming through the twilight that doth no rise nor set, haply I may remember, and haply may forget. this poem feel like a quiet allegory for the broken relationships that shape us, those little deaths, if you will. It reminds me that we're free to remember what we choose and to forget gently. I keep what made me stronger, what helped me see myself more clearly, and I'll let go of the rest. And once you do that, once you release the weight of the past, life has a funny way of bringing someone into your life who sees you, who has done their own hard work and who understands that growth never stops and who becomes your champion. And that's how I found my husband during COVID, that very difficult time for all of us, but I will always remember as joyful because we found each other, we grew close, we built a family, and it reminded me that it is never too late. That's a story for another video, by the way. Once you accept the lessons and let go of what isn't yours to carry, you clear the path for what was always meant for you.